Hello, in this video we're going to take a look at collaboration working with documents, collaboration working in the new document library, and real life examples of what happens when a number of people want to collaborate in a SharePoint document library, the new SharePoint document library in 2016, and how some of those granular functions that we saw in the previous video work together to provide different types of functional environments and escalated functions to allow you to make various functional changes, operational changes inside your document library. So in this example, I've got two users. There's this user, which is Jeff, and there is a second user called Jane, which I'll show you in a moment. And we're going to look at, as we manipulate the different out-of-the-box functionalities for document versioning and document library versioning, how that changes the interaction between these users. So let's go into the SharePoint list, into the settings, into version settings, and what we're going to do is we're going to set this back. So we're going to say that we don't need any content to be approved. We're going to remove all versioning. Notice that disappears here. Make sure that any user can read these items, and required documents to be checked out equal to no. So we're now at the very basic settings. Effectively, we've removed all version control from these documents. So let's go and see what Jane sees, and then edit some documents and see what happens. Okay, so in this view, we're here. We're in Jane's view, and if you remember, we added a few documents last time. Let's take this one, May 2016. Let's open that document up, and let's open that up online. Let's just type into that. Now, notice here it says saving. If we now drop back, here's May 2016. Notice the version number is still on 1. Now that has happened because there is no versioning. So therefore, any changes you make to this document, there won't be any history. There'll be no rollback facilities. Any changes you make will be made straight to the document itself, and within SharePoint there'll be no history management or version control management to support any of that. So let's go back in and make another change here very simply. And if we just add another line here. Now, if I drop back in to Jeff's view, and in Jeff's view we open up this document, what we're going to get here when we go to edit this document is we will get the latest updated changes that Jane has made. So notice we had the first change because we saved that. Now this is the second change, and it also tells us here that, look, Jane is actually editing this document, and this is where her cursor is. So if I come in underneath and say and I just check, I add that text in there. Now if we go back to Jane's view, what we see here in Jane's view is, look, we've just added that in, and that comes up, and it shows us where Jeff's cursor is, and obviously Jane's cursor was here. So what you get out of the box with Office 365, the Office 365 suite, and SharePoint is you get this very rich online Word document editing facility where two people can work on the same document at the same time, adding in different comments. You can collaborate and talk. Obviously, we've got this new chat window here. There's quite a lot that you can do. So you can work collaboratively together on the same document. And in my opinion, this is extremely powerful. It was something that Google had done some years before, but this is far more effective because this will save the document straight into SharePoint and then allow you to leverage all that SharePoint functionality as well as all the Word features, and certainly the Word features are far richer than anything that Google has developed to date. So you could take this offline into your desktop, and this is being updated and changed all the time. So in my opinion, this is absolutely super. This is king of the tree, and one of the most powerful collaborative tools that you could really have. As an example, you could have a meeting where you're taking minutes, or you're agreeing meeting agendas, and agreeing meeting outcomes and discussions in meetings, and you could be just recording it all here together collaboratively, 3 or 4 of you being able to add that data in so that you get a verbose record of what was actually said, as an example. Or you could be working with somebody 2,000 miles away on a particular document, and you're going to get immediate feedback and you can see immediate comments. So it's such a powerful collaborative tool. So let's go back now to SharePoint. Now obviously, no matter what happens here, you're only going to get version 1. So if you noticed, we're in Jane's view here, and I made the last change, so it will say that I made the last change and we're on version 1. And if I go back into Jeff's view, obviously it will say I made the change, we're on version 1, and it was modified 2 minutes ago. And if we go back to Jane's view, and in Jane's view we reopen this document back up, and we just make one final change. What we're going to see here is that information updates. The last person who modified it was Jane Johnson, and we're still on version 1. And if I go back to Jeff's view, and in Jeff's view I just refresh, we will get that change come through now and show us that is what has happened. So you get that very rich interface, but you don't get any of the version control. So any changes that are made are immediately saved, and there's no version control here in SharePoint. So the next step from this is, let's go back in to Manage Views, into Version Settings, and let's switch to Create Major Versions. Okay, and we're just going to say okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to drop back into Jane's view, and here in Jane's view, notice we're still on version 1 for this document. We're going to open that document back up. Let's edit that document. Now we're going to drop back, and what we see here is the version moves up to 2, because we've now switched on the ability for versions to begin to take place as we make changes. And as I exited the document, it saved it and added that version. So now if I go back to Jeff's view, you notice we see that second version here in Jeff's view. We're going to now edit that document again. And then we're going to drop back. What we're going to see here is that I made the change and we're on version 3. Now if we drop back into Jane's view, and what we see here in Jane's view again is version 3 that I've made that change. Now if we click here and say let's have a look at that version history for this document, what we're going to see here is, look, here's all the versions that have taken place. So there was my change and there's Jane's last 2 changes. And you know, we have this option to go, okay, look, I want to restore this. So if we click restore, it's going to say we're about to replace the current version. So if I say okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create another version. So what it did here is we were on version 3, but we restored version 2. So instead of deleting version 3 and making version 2 version 3, if you like, what happened is we took version 2 and we made a new version, so we can still go back to version 3 if we want. Now this is the most up-to-date version. So when we come away from this, what we're going to see if we click on this document is we'll see here where Jane edited the major version, but where I then edited the major version, it doesn't show on here because that was in version 3, not in version 2, and we have restored version 2. So if we now go back to the document library, and we go back to the version history, and we say, do you know what, look, we're going to restore now version 3. Let's restore that. You're always going to get this alert that says, do you sure you want to do that? So we now get version 5 from version 3, which replaces it. And obviously here it tells you who has made the version change, as we're now in as Jane. Now if we now go back and have a look at this document, what we will see here is the fact that there is my comment. So this is, once you've got version control on, you can start making these changes. And if you want to roll back versions, you can do. So if I come in here and I edit this document, and I type in here Jane, edit, and I leave this open, and now we drop back into Jeff's view. So here in Jeff's view, I'm going to open that document up, I'm going to edit that document, we still get this very rich interface that tells us Jane's in here and she's making changes. This is where her cursor is. So we still get the same functionality where we can still edit together in real time. And yet, if we now drop back and save this document, we will still get that rich version control. We're now on version 7 here in Jeff's view. And if we drop back and look at what Jane sees, and there we are, version 7. So the document has been saved, and we've now got 7 versions if we look at that history, with the last change being saved by Jeff, who made the last editable change to that document. So hopefully this begins to start to explain some of the rich tapestry around the functionality for version control in SharePoint 2016 and how it's layered on top of each other. So far we've got the very basic out of the box editing of Word Online, and obviously you need the latest Office 365 suites, probably 2016, to do this effectively for both parties. And you've got that very rich ability to be able to edit the document at the same time and all the functionality that comes with Word. And then you layer that on top with this version control, so we can start rolling back those changes if we want to, if we see things that aren't quite right. So let's move on. So I'm going to drop back now into Jeff's view. We're going to go take a look at Manage Views, and we're going to go and have a look at version settings. So let's now switch on the draft option. And we just set up the different options for draft. Now remember, we talked quite a lot about drafts and major versions in the last few videos, and we went through an explanation of what most of this means. So let's put that draft mode on. Let's drop back to the document library. Okay, so I just had to pause the video because I wasn't getting the expected results here for the version control. And one of the things that I found in the hundreds of, probably thousands of videos that I've watched since I've been learning and developing on IT is nobody ever shows you the mistakes that they made, so sometimes it's very difficult to learn. So one of the big mistakes that I made is I made the changes in the settings page, but I didn't save it, so therefore we didn't get the expected results. I'll just show you that very quickly, and hopefully this will jog your memory. So in the version settings here, where we made these changes, we need to click this OK button. I've done it 100 times, don't know why, but I forgot to do it that time, and because that happened we didn't get the minor versions being created. So sorry if you see that slight disparity in this video, but I want to show you the bloopers as well as when things go well. So let's go back and have a look at Jane's view now. And so if we edit this document again, what we'll get here, if I make this, if I just make this final, and I just auto save that, what we'll get here is that incremental change to version 9.2. and if I go back to Jeff and we open up this document and I make that change here, and we just save that back, what we get is that next step incremental to 9.3. and if we drop back to Jane, what we'll see is that version 9.3. so you don't need to check the document out to make that change here. So all changes are visible, all drafts are continuously updating here, and you know, in the version control we get this look here well, look, here are the latest 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. Now notice here it says this is the current published major version, and we talked about this quite a lot. So currently the people that can't see the draft. Now remember, the setting at the moment is that anybody who has read access, so anybody currently can read this at 9.3. But if we changed that and said only the author and only people that can authorize documents could see it, then everybody looking at this would only be able to see version 9. Now I'll show you how that works. What we have to do here is we have to drop back into Jeff. So Jeff is set up as an administrator. And if we're going to take a look, we're going to go into the document view, versioning. Now, if we step this up and say, only users who can approve items and the author of the item, right? Now, to do that, we have to make sure that this requires to step that up. Let's step this up just this one step here to only users who can edit items. Let's just see what that does, and we click OK here. So Jeff is an administrator, so he'll be able to see it. So we're on 9.3. Jeff made the last change. Let's go back and see what Jane sees. I'm going to refresh because remember we've made that change. 0.3 because she is an editor, or she has edit rights because we've seen that, because we've changed this document. So she will see that. Now let's drop back to Jeff and let's step that permission up one more level. We'll go to version settings and we're going to say content now requires approval, okay? And then we get this next level up, only users who can approve items and the author of the item. So let's click OK and make those changes happen. And we're going to refresh this document, this library. So Jeff still sees 9.3. He's the person who made the change. Let's go see what Jane sees. So I just had to stop the video to have a look at a further problem that I've run into, which was the fact that we are editing this progress report for May 2016. We got to version 9.3 and what we did was we switched the settings. I'll just show you so you recap. We switched the settings in the list view settings, and we switched it on to requires approval, major drafts, and only users who can approve items and the author of the item should be able to see it if it's in draft mode. And we saved that. So then when we go back and have a look at the document library, what we see here is May report was edited by me. We're on version 9.3, so it's a draft. And if we come across here, we'll see that that's in draft. And it was also created by me, so I would be the author. So in those settings, what maybe is expected is that this document would now not be available for Jane to see. And we take a look at Jane's view and we just refresh this view. What we see here is that the report, this document, is available to her. She can see 9.3. The fact that it's still in draft mode and it was created by me, so I am the author. As I said, the expected understanding is that would update the permissions of that document. However, that hasn't happened. Even though Jane doesn't have approval rights. Okay, just had to pause the video further to understand some of the complexity and some of the quirks of this SharePoint list. So, a bit of discovery. If you have a document that you've already shared and been editing with a second party, and then you switch on the approval process, what you must do is you must publish and approve that document in order then to lock down future versions. So here's that document, May 2016. Notice that we're now on version 10.1. If I move it across, you'll see that we're in draft mode for 10. Now this is in Jeff's view, who is the administrator. If we go and have a look at Jane's view, what we're going to find here in Jane's view is that she only sees version 10 because we've published and approved that version. Now, if I hadn't, we were on version 9.3, and Jane could still see 9.3. So until I published and approved 9.3 and forced it up to version 10, remember whole numbers are major versions, and that's what published, she would still be able to see all the changes that happened until we published that version. Once we published that version, she's then out of the loop. So now I can continue to make changes to this document, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, and Jane will not be able now to see those changes until I publish and approve that and push that through to a major version. So let me just prove that to you. So if we drop back in to Jeff's view, and here in Jeff's view, let's just edit this document one more time. Save that document back. Watch the save here. So we now are on version 10.2 for that document. Now we go back and have a look at Jane's view. And notice we just don't get the update. We're still on version 10. And if we now open this document, you'll see she doesn't see the changes that we've made. None of the changes that I've now made appear here, so she only sees that version. So as I said in previous videos, this is quite complicated, extremely complex. And as you switch on, some of this functionality gets even more complex. So just to take us back one more step, what I did also was I added a new document here, and you see that we're on version 1.1 here. And if I go back and have a look at Jane, what we'll see here is that she can only see version 1. So adding new documents with this version control and approval process switched on works very straightforward. If you switch it on in the middle of a existing process that people have edited, you need to publish those full changes before you get that rich functionality switched on where they can't see the updated versions from that version number onwards. So that's well worthwhile bearing in mind. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pause here, and hopefully you're going to join me in the next video, and we will continue looking at some of the more rich functionality with check in, check out with this process and see where we go from there. Thank you very much for watching.